What if I were to tell you that there was a mockumentary, found footage, anthology horror show that debuted solely on Animal Planet? That's right, I said Animal Planet. That has been lost within the confines of history. People don't know this show exists. People have never heard about it. People may vaguely remember hearing something. They may mistake it for something else. But this show was a huge part of my childhood because I loved animals. I'm a huge animal and wildlife fanatic. As a kid, I watched Animal Planet 24/7, and you had legends on there like Steve Irwin, RIP, Crocodile Hunter. You had my personal favorite, Austin Stevens, more stylized documentary guy, Jeff Corwin, a comedic guy, and plenty of others, and other animal shows that are popular. But then you had this. And there was cryptid hunting shows like Monster Quest and other things where people were trying to find cryptids. But this was the first time that an actual horror show was made on Animal Planet. An anthology mockumentary show done in a found footage style. Horrifying. Dealt with cryptids, dealt with people getting attacked, dealt with these crazy stories. And I was a huge fan. And being a horror fan, combining these two worlds together, you had the perfect show for me. So I thought I wanted to talk about it today, make a little unique video diving back into my nostalgic history of the show and maybe exposing you guys and intriguing you so that way you check it out. So without further ado, let's talk about the 2008 series that went on, officially premiered 2009, but the pilot episode debuted on Halloween in 2008, which is Lost Tapes. As I said, Lost Tapes is a mockumentary anthology show done in a found footage style on Animal Planet, and it dealt with cryptids. Right away you got my attention because my favorite genre in horror, or I guess subgenre, is creature features. I love creature features. I'm reading a creature feature right now, one of the most iconic creature feature, Jaws. I've not seen the movie. I plan on doing it after I read the book. I love animal creature feature horror. I love monster creature feature horror, whether it's a creature made up by the author, whether it's a cryptid like this show did. I love those. Those are always been my favorite. Even the bad ones still intrigue me, and I want to read them all if I can. And yeah, this show did that. It focused on cryptids. I've always been a big fan of cryptids, and this show, the way it was shot by Go Go Lucky Entertainment. I think they're a production group. They made a show, I think, called Paranormal State that I never saw, and I think their recent stuff is like some Orange County reality show, aka they fell off. That's the thing. But they made this show, and I loved it. And as a kid, it terrified me because I thought it was real. I really thought it was real because I believe in cryptids as a kid. I still believe in them now, but I don't believe every cryptid. I only believe a few cryptids are probably out there in some remote parts of the world, like the Yeti and the ocean. The ocean definitely has terrifying stuff in there. And of course, aliens, but aliens already confirmed by the government to be real. And I love cryptids, I love horror, I love animals, and cryptids are kind of like animals and monsters combined into one. And that's why this show fascinated me, because I thought it was terrifying, I thought it was real. The fact that it's a mockumentary, I thought it was a documentary as a kid. And obviously your little kid mind, I was in elementary school, like 8 or 10 years old when I was watching this. You don't register that this is not real, because how would people dying on camera somehow get the camera footage later? No reason. And also the fact that these things don't usually exist most of the time. But for the younger viewer, it really worked. And I think as an adult viewer, I watched this years ago, and it still was pretty creepy to me. I've not rewatched the show recently. I plan on rewatching all the episodes and making individual episode reviews on this channel. And then I'll do an overall thoughts video by the end. But yeah, man, a great show. Fantastic. And I just wanted to talk about it a little bit. Now, for those of you who don't know, the show, again, like I said, debuted in 2008 on Halloween. The very first episode, the pilot one, was called Chupacabra, and each episode is named after the cryptid that they're focusing on for the show. And the way these episodes are formatted is essentially you'll get introduced into this anthology format. Each episode is different, completely different, separated stories. Again, a mockumentary, so it'll be someone recording found footage mockumentary. They'll be recording on their phone or a GoPro or whatever, a body cam if they're a police officer, and that footage will somehow be found later on. And this is what you're kind of seeing, very similar to like VHS or something. And they'll go into the segment, they'll go into basically the story about the character, the family, what the situation is. You'll slowly start getting more and more exposed to the cryptid attacks or the encounters or whatever's going on as the episode progresses. And in between, you're going to have cryptozoologists and people that are experts on this stuff that are basically giving information about the cryptid, describing its features, describing what its behavior is, describing where it lives and stuff like that. Experts in cryptozoology, by the way. I don't know how you get that degree. I don't know if that is a degree. I'm assuming cryptozoologists are wildlife biologist degrees, and then they just identify as cryptozoologists. You just go to a animal wildlife party, and all of a sudden they're like, "Hey, you're a wildlife biologist, right? Yeah. I'm a cryptozoologist," and the person goes, "Oh." It's like, it's like those tinfoil hat people. It's like, how are you an expert on something that doesn't exist? Cryptozoologist, not exactly something that I take very seriously, but for the sake of the episode, we're going to treat it as actual people that matter. No offense to any cryptozoologists out there. So yeah, that's how the episodes are formatted. You have this found footage segment, and in between will be these experts giving in more information about the cryptid, and you may or may not then see that information slowly being implemented into the segment, and that's how they're formatted. Chupacabra was about this Mexican family, and they're trying to cross the border illegally. So they managed to pack up all their bags, pack up all their important stuff, kind of say goodbyes to their house, their family, their livestock, and then they find these people who can take them over the border. They're a little bit shady. They may or may not have some criminal backgrounds potentially, but they're willing to take them, and it's their only chance they have to get illegally across. And as they do so, they eventually get stopped in the middle of the road. These guys take them out of the car, they hold them at gunpoint, they rob them of all their stuff, and they basically leave them stranded out in the Mexican desert, and they then have to wander and somehow find their way either to safety or find their way to the border themselves. And let's just say, because they're out in the Mexican desert, they may or may not start getting targeted by the chupacabra, aka that blood-sucking canine creature. And there's a body count, people are killed, and it's quite vicious. And let's just say that there's one lone survivor who ends up very traumatized by the end of the episode, as well as some police officers who deal with something that they were not prepared for that day. That's kind of how it's made. Very creepy, very terrifying as a kid. And even now when I'm watching it, I get quite freaked out by the way it's shot. It's very intense, very realistic. You feel like you're very much within the moment. You feel like you're watching something that's real. And it's really, really intense. The sound effects. They don't always show the creature. I don't think they show the creature in Chupacabra. But there's some other episodes where they do have prosthetic effects. In season 3, which is my least favorite out of the 3 seasons, there's a total of, I think, 34 episodes. They start using CGI, which kind of looks really goofy and wonky because it's an animal budget show level of CGI, so not that good. But luckily, it's not obnoxiously used. And yeah, that's sort of how the first episode was formatted. And I guess then I should talk about some of the episodes from this show that are memorable to me for how creepy they were and how much I like the concepts. So just to go over some of the episodes that in this show that kind of stuck out to me, one of them, it involved Bigfoot. Bigfoot is, I think, the second episode. Bigfoot is like the most popular cryptid out there. Everybody and their mama knows about Bigfoot, one of the biggest things. That episode dealt with I think, lone park ranger, this woman who was studying the declining black bear population in this Colorado forest or something. And as she's out there, she slowly starts getting stalked by something. And you assume it's potentially a cryptid, potentially Bigfoot, and then it may or may not turn out to be maybe something more human. Potentially she may have both a cryptid and a hunter, a crazed hunter that's stalking her out there in the woods. And eventually, let's just say that the cryptid in this case may or may not get some revenge, but not necessarily on the character you think. So there's a little bit of comeuppance from the Bigfoot, kind of humanizing it more, but done in a brutal way. And I thought that was a really interesting concept for this mockumentary episode. Another one that terrified me is called The Jersey Devil. Jersey Devil is one of my favorite cryptids out there. Basically, for those of you who don't know, is a giant horse, goat, demon thing. It's like a mix of a horse, a goat, and a demon. It has these giant bat-like demonic wings. I think it was the story about this woman in the house giving birth to kids, and the 13th kid ended up being the incarnate of the devil and flew up the chimney out into the Jersey Pine Barren Forest. It deals with a family who's coming back from a Jersey Shore vacation back to their, I think, house, and they have to cross through the Pine Barrens in a car, and they end up running over an animal, in which case their, I think, dog, like a golden retriever, ends up running out of the car and chasing after it. So now they have to go through the Pine Barren Forest and find their dog, and it's, I think, a couple of daughters, a father, and it's the mother who's, I think, 7 months pregnant. The evil number 7, right? 7 months pregnant, and she starts, they start heading through the forest, and they start seeing some encounters. They start dealing with some terrifying things that may or may not involve the Jersey Devil. And more specifically, there is a scene in the episode where basically they run into this abandoned house, which may or may not be the birthplace where this Jersey Devil was born. They see all these satanic and crazy signs in there, and they head into the house. They get into this closet. The 2 daughters get into this closet and basically wait there, and they're looking at the door with the camera or whatever they have, and the door starts getting pounded, and next thing you know, a horse-hoofed leg smashes through the wooden door and then breaks it down, and you see this basically horse-hoofed footed thing with these crazy demonic looking monster hands just prowling and stalking and kind of looking around. You don't see its face, but you see its body, you see the wings, you see the tail. And as they're waiting in there, I think the mom or dad ends up calling one of the daughters to see where they are. And as the phone goes off in the closet, you then see the creature turn around, and that shot of the Jersey Devil turning around, and it's basically snaps its head in their direction and goes and starts walking towards them. That is one of the most terrifying scenes. The prosthetic effects they did for the Jersey Devil in this episode, it's like, I don't know how to describe it. It's like this goat face, this elongated goat face, but it's got these razor sharp teeth. It's got these demonic red small eyes, and it's like snarling at them. And it's got these giant horns, but like these giant horns, but one horn is going up and one horn is twisted, nearly broken, pointed down. And as it turns around, it's got these, crossed horns. It's got this snarling face, razor sharp teeth, and again, this presence, this giant demon thing with these huge wings just crawling towards him. And then you get this scene where the 7th month pregnant mother has to then fight off the creature, and she may or may not start going into labor while this thing is attacking her. Do you hear how crazy this plot is? And that is the premises of some of these shows, the episodes. Another one that stuck out to me is called Alien. Alien is about this astronaut who ends up in the hospital because I think he gets super ill. And he ended up, I think, inhaling some asteroid dust or comet dust while he was working out there. And he may or may not have a mutated parasite within his body, this unidentified object. And what ends up happening is that this may or may not be a creature, an alien. It starts growing inside of its body, and it gives birth. And it gives birth by ripping through their chest and coming out of the chest cavity. And it's not a normal alien. No. They decided to go unique for this one because aliens are confirmed real. Again, the government said aliens are real. We don't know what they look like. Again, there could be plenty of types of aliens. The alien in this episode is a giant alien insectoid hornet. I hate hornet and wasps. I hate insects. I hate wasps. I've gotten stung by wasps so many times as a kid. Traumatized me. I hate one stuck close to my heart. I was in so much pain. I think one time I was sleeping on the couch as a baby, and then the patio door was open and my mom came. I was crying my eyes out and I got stung by a wasp on my arm. Fuck wasps. I hate wasps. All my homies hate the wasps. And the idea of a giant alien insectoid wasp that ends up basically as a little parasite pathogen entering into your body, growing inside of your chest, and then ripping through your chest, bursting out and flying out of there. This giant insectoid wasp. basically starts flying. It's like shown on like hospital cameras. It starts flying around the hospital, attacking people, infecting them, in you know, putting some eggs inside of them, and just killing them brutally. I was like, God damn, dude. That episode terrified me. Aliens terrify me. A giant insectoid wasp ripping through people's chest, murdering people, and then infesting them with eggs is... I don't like that, bro. I don't like that. But that's why it's so effective. I love that episode a lot. There's a few scenes sprinkled throughout some of these episodes that got me. One is like the Dover Demon episode. I don't remember that one, but there's a shot of these. It's like a group of friends that are trying to find the Dover Demon on like a YouTube channel. And as he puts on the night vision on his camera, behind the tree, you see this fucking rake, pale skin crawling thing that's looking down at him like he's literally looking up the tree, and this rake. I don't know if you've ever heard about the creepypasta The Rake. That's what this thing looks like. It's just hanging up on a tree, looking down at him, right behind him. And I'm just looking. I'm looking at him like, "Hey, yo, don't turn around, bitch. You're finished." That was the terrifying scene. You also have an episode called Hellhound, which this episode is basically about these like goth kids who are like doing Ouija board out at a cemetery. Real edgy. But they deal with the Hellhound, this terrifying black as night dog with these glowing red coal eyes and vicious snarling teeth. It's like Cujo, but worse. It's a Hellhound. It's basically Cujo from hell, and it's hunting down these kids through the cemetery. They're running through. This thing hops on top of their car and starts snarling at them. Horrifying stuff. A Doberman on steroids. And I have to say that my two favorite episodes out of this entire series, from what I can remember, is two episodes that genuinely unnerved me and scared me as a kid. One of them is about the Owl Man. The Owl Man is this, I guess, Mothman kind of figure. It's like this giant humanoid owl thing with these glowing red eyes, much like the Mothman, and it invokes this sense of fear and supernatural feelings inside of you. And the story is basically about this Mothman being this local demon that has been terrorizing this church congregation. They have been getting harassed by this thing. It's been up in the rafters, trying to kill them, trying to scare them off. And they really do believe it's some local demon. And you even get this little girl from the congregation who these investigators go to her house. And, you know, she has been targeted by this Owl Man, this demon. It's been haunting her in her dreams. It shows up at her window. It looks at her. She's had some freak out encounters with it, and she's very much that traumatized little girl being like, I see dead people. I see the Owl Man. That kind of a little innocent girl that's the victim really scared me as a kid. And there's a part of the episode where they're in the church and they find these giant owl pellets. Now, in elementary school, our class had to deal with owl pellets. We had to open up owl pellets. This is gross. I don't think students can get away with doing this now, but the teacher bought owl pellets. We had to dissect them, basically open them up, and we'd find like little rat bones. Sometimes we'd find little rat jaws in there. The investigators in this episode open up the owl pellets with like some tools or whatever, and there's a giant human jawbone. A human jawbone lodged in there. And then as soon as they look up in the rafters, this thing terrifies and swoops down on them. Really horrifying. I think they get chased through the night. This little girl ends up becoming targeted because they're with the little girl later on in this episode, and she's being hunted. This thing, you know, is treating them as them being in the way of his target prey, the little girl. And it's a terrifying chase scene. Really horrifying and scary. That one scarred me as a kid. Another one that scarred me as a kid was the episode about the Mongolian death worm. This one is not as well. I'm trying to think of another episode that probably got to me. I'll talk about the Mongolian death worm. The Mongolian death worm was about these adventure junkies that are on quad bikes and they're out in the Mongolian desert. And this Mongolian death worm starts chasing them, which for those of you who don't know is a 10-foot long giant worm with a giant lamprey mouth of serrated teeth. It potentially can shock you. It's got like an electric eel. It can shock you. It has poison glands it can fire. That was horrifying to me because I hate giant worms. I read recently an adult horror book that dealt with something like that. Worse than that, but something like that. And seeing this thing burying through the desert, like it's like this like great white shark wake of just dirt and in the sand that chases after them and pulls them through the ground. This is the imagery of them being pulled through the ground, like them being, the guys will be electrocuted through the sand, and this thing will lash out like a giant lamprey or a crocodile, grab them and pull them into the dirt and drag them down to eat them and bury them. Horrifying stuff. But the scariest episode to me was an episode called The Devil Dragon. And this is about megalania. There's reports in Australia of megalania still being around. For those of you who don't know about megalania, it is a distant relative back during the old ages, dinosaur ages and stuff like that, prehistoric ages, of the Komodo dragon. Komodo dragons are the most terrifying creatures on Earth. They are these 10-foot long monitor lizards. They got these serrated shark-like teeth that can tear apart your flesh. They have a mouth full of like bacteria or poison that once it gets into your, once they bite down on you, they basically let you run away and bleed out, and you will consistently bleed out from the wound. Your wound will get infected due to the bacteria or poison, and your skin will break down and you slowly die. And this thing will trail you down. It will hunt you down through smell, through your blood, and then it'll start eating you alive. Komodo dragons eat you alive. There's videos of them eating monkeys alive. There's videos of them eating deer alive. Horrifying, terrifying stuff. Megalania was a 20, let me repeat that, 20-foot long Komodo dragon. So the biggest saltwater crocodiles out there, if look up videos of giant saltwater crocodiles, look up videos of 16, 18-foot, 20-foot saltwater crocodiles, and imagine that as a Komodo dragon. Imagine a Komodo dragon of that size basically walking on land. Imagine a giant saltwater crocodile moving fast as hell on land with the venomous bacteria-filled bite, and instead of teeth that, these giant spike-like teeth that hold on to you, it's shark-like hooked python teeth that not only grab you and make sure you can't get away, but they also tear chunks out of your flesh and infect you with the bacteria. Horrifying. So this adventurer guy has a GoPro, and he's out there in the Australian forest, and he ends up getting attacked by this devil dragon, this megalania. It bites down on his shin, really messes it up. He has to tourniquet it, and he slowly starts dying out in the rainforest. He slowly starts becoming infected, poisoned. He starts dying slowly. And as he's dragging away, you know, there's a point in the episode where he starts screaming for his family. He starts screaming to just end it all. The pain is so bad. He just wants to die. And this thing is hunting him from the bushes. He hears noises all around him as his leg is being infected, as his leg, the flesh is dying, as he's bleeding out, as it's the most horrible pain, no food, no water. This thing is literally in the bushes just waiting for him. And then at the end of the episode, after he's done screaming, after he's almost dead, or basically passes out, this thing then scurries out of the rainforest and basically kills him. One of the most horrifying things I've ever seen. That is the most traumatizing episode to me. So yeah, that's my review for Lost Tapes. Thank you for watching that, and hope you guys check out the video and enjoy. So deuces. Yeah, man, this is a terrifying episode. Sorry I had to rush it, but the video is getting long. So yeah, please check it out. Lost Tapes, horrifying.